Good afternoon, everybody. This is Lorene Romero. I am your NACTA webinar moderator for today. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Kasie Smith, and she is the president of Serendipity Media. Many of you are going to be familiar with her because you have met her at NACTA conferences, as well as you see her magazine every month. I am going to turn the reins over to her because today she is going to give us a presentation on getting more leads. And this is definitely something that everybody is interested in. We are all about selling travel, and she is going to give us some great ways on how to get more leads. Kasie, thank you again. I am going to put myself on mute. I want to remind everybody that this is being recorded, and I will put it on the NACTA YouTube channel shortly. You will also receive information after our session with information on how to get to that NACTA account. I encourage everybody to just sign up to have your own account on there so that way you can get these sessions when they are dropped on there. So Kasie, here you go. I am going to put myself on mute so you don't hear my chair squeak, but I will be here for you when you are ready to do the question and answer session.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lorene, and I want to thank all of you who have joined today's webinar and NACTA for the opportunity to share with you a little bit about our experience here, and my hope is that each of you will walk away with at least something that you can at least consider or implement into your business. So before we dive in, I want to ask how many of you feel like this when you think of the complex details of what's needed in marketing today? Well, I have to, if I'm perfectly honest with you, I feel like this after most of the marketing meetings here at Serendipity. A lot of people always ask me, well, why do you feel like that? I mean, shouldn't you have it all together? Well, at Serendipity, our parent company to Groups Today, and as many of you know on the call, to Agent Life magazine, we manage 5 different magazines. We have 5 different websites, 5 different e-newsletters, 24 social channels working with, and you know, when you put all of that together, I mean, yes, I have a fabulous team, but when you put it all together, it's certainly overwhelming. But what I can tell you is that with a little bit of education on what we're going to talk about today, with some effort, because it just doesn't happen easily, so there's going to be no magic pill today, and a little bit of commitment, you can get through this and hopefully maybe just enjoy a glass of wine at the end of the day and not feel so frazzled. So, but as we kind of move into the subject here about getting more leads, I think it's really important to really honor kind of where we've come in our marketing world and honor why it can feel so overwhelming to us at this point in time. For those of you who were on my past webinar, you actually heard me talk about this, so it'll be a repetitive, but those of you who have not, it's really important to take a look at the historical look of advertising in general, and it really kind of shows why the last 20 years in marketing has amplified to a level of complete craziness. When you think of advertising from a historical perspective, advertising has been around for as long as we can remember. It really started with newspapers because they've been circulated since the 1800s. In the early 1900s, radio was a big new thing. And it really wasn't until 50 years later when television came into the advertising sphere. So as new mediums came into the advertising fold, people had time to adapt and adjust and accommodate towards that new medium from paper to 50 years later to TV. But in the 1980s, advertising was at its peak, and we know that the primary form of advertising was certainly direct mail, television, and newspaper advertising. So from 1950 to 1988, that's all we had as far as a marketing medium. But then in 1999, that's when everything changed. In 1999, or 89, excuse me, the World Wide Web was created, and within 11 years, 50% of our households had internet access. Apple purchased iTunes in 2000, that same year. In 2003, we had RSS feeds, and MySpace were created. In 13 short years, MySpace became a complete fad and vanished as quickly as it evolved. As you see here in 2004, Facebook was created and today has 1.2 billion users worldwide per month. In 2005, YouTube was created and has 1 billion unique users each month as it stands today. 2005 was the iPhone was introduced, and it's expected that 70% of the worldwide population will be using smartphones by 2020, and that's just 4 years away. So when you take a look at this historical perspective, it's just mind-blowing how fast we've seen that this has moved. The information consumption habits of the American public are changing daily. In this slide you see iTunes, Facebook, YouTube, but as you can imagine, we have a multitude of social channels that are out there. Technology is moving at a faster rate than ever before, and it's critical that as marketers and as travel agents, you are marketers, that you need to be able to adapt to the changes as quickly as they are happening. So, as I mentioned before, when you kind of think about this, you definitely feel like wanting to drink a bottle of wine at the end of the day. My goal is to just have you enjoy a sip of wine if that's your thing at the end of the day, but please know you definitely can do it. So, but in order to be really effective, having a good plan in place to manage the process is much easier. And as I mentioned a minute ago, it's my hope that you guys are going to walk away with just a couple of ideas that'll impact your business and aid you in creating an effective marketing plan. To do that, we're going to talk about inbound marketing and why it's important to the overall marketing strategy in today's marketing world. We're going to identify, prioritize, and talk about creating the best content for your business specifically. And then once you've got great content, we're going to talk about content amplification and how to maximize that to get the total reach out of your content. And then we're going to talk about, once you have this great content, then how can you get clicks and or leads as a result of the content that you're publishing. And then lastly, we're going to talk about tips to provide increased SEO or search engine optimization. So I really want to start with, so we're going to go through each one of these as separate steps. So we're going to start with talking about what is inbound marketing. And inbound marketing basically is, inbound content marketing. It basically earns the attention of a customer. You see it up here on the screen here. It makes your business easy to be found. It draws customers to your website by providing them with interesting and valuable content. And to give you a specific example of this, in 2014, Callaway Golf created a series of how-to videos, how to hit a bump and run, and how to hit vertical centers of gravity in golf drivers. They never mentioned Callaway drivers. They never mentioned the brand of Callaway. They just talked about how to hit a bump and run. When the video was done, then the ad for Callaway came up. This is a great way to educate potential customers with soft messaging to give that potential customer information that they can use. Inbound marketing, it basically provides traffic to your website and provides you leads. And you're doing that through content like how to hit the bump and run or vertical centers of gravity in golf drivers. The content really drives traffic to your website and provides you leads. Put up here this magnet, and I think it's just a good analogy because we found here at Serendipity the best way to create what we refer to as a magnetic force, which is getting people to come to your website, is through content. Content marketing really is the key to inbound marketing. But a lot of people are like, okay, well, what's the difference between inbound marketing and content marketing? Well, inbound marketing I like to refer to as this magnetic force of bringing people into your website. But content marketing is specifically using content. Content marketing is the strategic marketing approach of creating and distributing valuable, relevant, consistent content to attract and acquire clearly defined audience with an objective of driving profitable customer action. Basically, in short, content marketing is the art of communicating with your customers and your prospects without selling. It really is non-interruptive marketing. Basically, if you look at it like this, instead of pitching your product or your service, you're delivering information that makes your buyer more intelligent. And the essence of this strategy is the belief that if we, as businesses, deliver consistent, ongoing, valuable information to buyers, they will also ultimately reward us with their business and their loyalty, and people do that. Now, I don't know how many on the call are golfers, but I'm a big golfer. So if I'm constantly learning from one particular source about how I can improve my game and it's time for me to go ahead and buy a set of clubs, that's the first place I'm going. So you can think about it that way. Same thing when it comes to travel. If people are getting great and useful information and you are making them a smarter, more educated buyer, when it comes time to push that return button to click send, they're going to do it with you. Oddly enough, though, as marketers, our natural inclination is to want to market the number of spots left we have in a package or on a tour. A lot of times we want to market the destinations that we offer or the attractions on any given itinerary. If you're a travel agent that does a lot of weddings, wedding travel, you need to think about starting to provide content about wedding planning. Don't mention your services about travel. Specifically write about wedding planning, writing about destination weddings. And then when people are engaged with your content and they're like, oh, you know, I've been engaged, now I'm really interested in picking a destination wedding, then they're going to go with you. If you do a lot of river cruises, create content that's focused on the top 10 things needed to know about river cruising. Now, because we are in travel, there's a lot of content out there, so you can obviously use content that's out there or create your own. Authentic content sells more. But what the important thing is here is that you need to give them something that will enhance their knowledge, and they will come to you when booking your product. So I have had a lot of people over the time say, okay, I get inbound marketing, I get how it ties to content, I can see how it's important to educate somebody to be a smarter consumer, but you may still be questioning whether this is the right direction for your company. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm not sure it's right for me. Well, I'm going to share with you some specific data that will just basically show you the benefits of why content marketing is beneficial for you in inbound. So this is a slide that really shows you the power of inbound marketing. And basically, at the end of the day, inbound marketing costs you less when it comes to lead generation. In companies that are the size of 1 to 25, you will see here inbound marketing leads cost a company $37 to outbound leads at $102. Those prices more than double if you're a larger company, from $70 to $220 differential. Companies in the sector of business to business and business to consumer nonprofits are showing up to 40% greater ROI than the previous year from their inbound marketing efforts. And that's just a tremendous amount of growth. Inbound marketing practices are producing more leads than outbound paid media self-source leads. So you can go ahead and see it's the orange bar you're seeing is the greatest opportunity for lead sourcing. You know, really at the end of the day, inbound marketing is more cost effective. It can be measured, and it's more effective. So, you know, for a lot of people, they're like, oh, why should I do it? Well, when you can track something, you can get results, and you know it's being more effective. I don't want to really say anything about that because I think the simple answer is absolutely. But hopefully each of you feel that this is something that is worth continuing to explore and making a priority for your business. But you're probably wondering, okay, all of that's good, but how does it generate leads? Well, before you jump into generating leads, you really need to start with identifying and prioritizing the best content, because if you have great content, you can generate leads from it. And, you know, this slide in particular just really talks about, you know, what you need to be thinking about when you're creating content for yourself and your business specifically. One thing that is really important is to always look at your client insight. At the end of every one of your trips, reaching out to all your clients and asking for them to do a survey and providing you feedback is absolutely critical. For those of you who have a website, doing a digital SWOT analysis and keyword analysis and Google Analytics on search is absolutely critical. Specific things that you're looking for is keyword searches. You're looking, obviously, for your entry pages, your exit pages. How long are people staying on your website? What is the bounce rate? And that is the time somebody comes into your site and bounces back out. You want people that are going multiple pages deep into your website. And when you take a look at what's causing them to do that on your website, that gives you insight on the type of content that you can go ahead and generate. So once you've done that, you can basically go ahead and start diving into what your content marketing mission really is. You know, for us here at Groups Today, our mission is very, very simple. For one of the magazines we have, Groups Today, many of you might be receiving the magazine. If you don't, it's a free subscription, but this focuses on group travel specifically. But our mission here in this community is to really focus on the group travel professional. That means that all content that we publish, whether it's destinations, news, profiles, business, and blogs, all is group travel specific. So we're really focusing on making that a specific mission. Once you've identified the mission of your content, and I would say for most of you, your mission is obviously, can be definitely more focused than that. This mission for groups today is very, very broad, but maybe you are a travel agent that really focuses on, cruising travel. So you need to narrow your focus and start focusing on cruising travel. Maybe your clientele is very much of a boomer age generation, and your content strategy would be providing content that is maybe perhaps living out the retirement years in the best way possible, and that can help guide your content. Whatever that mission is for you, this sets the stage for everything that is to come. Most importantly, though, you want to make sure that your content covers what your clients want. Now, I know this might seem extremely obvious, but I think a lot of times there are businesses out there that provide content that they think people need to read. And that is not what works. You need to provide content that your clients want. And so, if you, like I said before, if you are a travel agent and you know that you have a baby boomer generation who's starting to travel with their grandchildren, writing about that, do a very specific targeted audience. Another thing to think about, if you're in the boomer generation, you need to address some of their pain points. Now, you guys are travel entities in general, but you know what? There's big issues for people that are your customers. It's about retirement. It's about savings. How am I going to know if I have enough? Maybe that's what you should be writing because you want to engage them. Obviously you need to be a trusted resource and you need to tell an engaging story, but you need to really take a look at what is going through the lives of your customers, and that's the content that you should start to write about. Doesn't always have to be specifically about travel. As I mentioned with groups today, our website is focused on anything related to the group travel professional. So we'll talk about cancellation policies. We'll talk about traveling with medicines. We'll talk about niche markets. We'll talk about a variety of things. Every single thing focuses on that. But you don't need to write to the masses all of the time. You can pick and choose targeted audiences within your clientele and start writing content to those. A couple of things to keep in mind, though, as you're doing content is that you really do need to be authentic. And you need to be useful, and then you can also be entertaining and use emotion. Now, you don't need to do all of these in every single piece of content that you curate, but I will say this. A minute ago, I mentioned there's a lot of great content about travel and that you can share on your social channels, and that's important. It's great. But in addition to that, companies who are creating their own authentic content to their brand are becoming much more successful because they're providing something they can't get elsewhere, or a different version of what they can't get elsewhere. Most importantly, being useful and educating people about new topics is going to be very, very critical. And sometimes, the entertaining and use emotion is a really good piece. You don't need to do that all the time because not everything can be to everybody's standards at once. But, doing some of this will really help create this content to be strong and moving forward. So once you've gone ahead and kind of said, all right, this is my mission, this is kind of who I think I need to be targeting based on who's coming to your website, who your clientele is, what the feedback they're giving. You've spent some time taking a look at the lives and the demographics of those people, and you've really said, okay, this is the type of content I'm going to write. Once you've got the content, then you really need to focus on content amplification. And, as we go into this content amplification, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the first few steps on this, a lot of people say, oh, Kasie, you're just being redundant. We know all of that stuff. But the stuff I've just mentioned is the stuff that most people skip over quickly. Really take time to do a deep dive into the type of content that is going to be most valuable to your specific end user, because once you get to content amplification, this is where you're pulling it out. This is where it starts to make or break your brand, because this is where you share it out to the masses. And I'll take a moment to talk about content amplification here. The whole purpose of content amplification is that you've got this great piece of content. And again, I'm going to use the example of, a wedding tip, 5 top 10 wedding tips for destination brides, or what you need to know 3, 6, 9 months ahead of time. Let's pretend that's an article we're using. Your goal as a marketer is to get this into the hands of the most amount of people you can, or reach the largest audience as possible. And what used to happen is people would post it out on Facebook or they put it on their website. And we've gotten to the point where you really have to put this on every channel out there that is available. And you need to do it on all social media channels you need to do it on your blogs, you need to consider webinars, you need to consider e-newsletters, and you need to get it on your website. Because what we're finding, and when it comes to content, is in our case, some people read our magazines, some people follow us on Facebook, some people read our e-newsletters, but a lot of people don't follow you everywhere. So content amplification is really, really critical if you want to reach the total largest audience as possible. What I want to do is take a look at each of these pieces that I just mentioned and break down how to maximize these. And I'm going to start with a blog. A couple of things on the blog. I'm not sure if all of you blog, but I would highly suggest if you are not blogging that somebody needs to be doing, whether that's you, whether that's the leader of your company, because it really provides some very controlled branding. You can specifically talk about the destination wedding hiccups that brides want to avoid. You can talk about specific things that will help you do your business better and help make them educated. They also increase your engagement with your clients, and because they're authentic content, it increases your SEO. And then I would like to say it does provide thought leadership. For me specifically, I do a lot of blogs on business and marketing in general, so that thought leadership helps. But, oops, wrong direction, sorry about that. This is an example of what we're referring to about a blog. And this happens to be, and I don't know if any of you know Mary Stackneck, she's with Mayflower Tours out of Chicago, but a couple of years ago she created a newsletter that was called M-Tips. And they're a large tour operator, and obviously they sell to a lot of group leaders. And this whole blog that she wrote about was just about relationship selling. A lot of blogs I've read in the past is more of a how-to, and this is exactly her sharing her experiences and how she does it. Now, at the end of the day, she's selling it to people that she really wants them to apply these practices to, but this is a great way for her to get some customer engagement, and it's increased SEO, and she's just really talking about how somebody can sell her product. But as you read this blog, she never mentions Mayflower Tours, specifically tours that she's trying to get those group leaders to pitch. She's just really talking about selling in general. Here's another example, and this one is really focuses a little bit. This is from BrightSpark. They're a large student tour operator, and they're just telling a great story about this middle school who got to see history come alive, and it's just sharing this whole unique experience. So going back, let's say you do a lot of weddings, you should be blogging about wonderful brides who've gone and had amazing experiences, but specifically talk about the things they learned on their trip. So blogging is a great way to, increase your customer engagement, to tell a story, but doing it subtly without selling. So blogging is very critical and important to any content strategy. I want to go ahead and move on to social media. First, I will suggest that we'll talk about pay to play and all of that kind of stuff, but I really think it's important that you in social media really focus on what are your customers really using. There's a lot of great information in social media about this topic. It's a whole other webinar in and of itself, which we're not going to talk about it. But what I want to do is focus on how specifically to use content amplification via some of these channels. The first one is pay to play. You can see here that there are two types of ways to pay to play. I would assume most of you have a Facebook page. Instagram is certainly becoming very big in tour and travel, amongst other markets as well. But in order for your social post to be seen by your followers, you must pay to play. You must boost advertising posts, and this is just to get content seen. In all social media channels right now, if you post something to your business page, about 10% of the people who follow you will actually see that post. If you throw $10, $15, you don't have to have a lot of money to do this, but if you throw $10, $15 towards this, you will automatically see that you can set it up when you pay $10. I want this to appear in every single one of my followers' pages. So immediately, your amplification ramps up dramatically by making sure that your post shows up in their feed. You can also do social advertising. And social advertising is an opportunity for you to do, you can advertise, which are the banner ads on the side, which you can target specific interests. So again, if you know people are interested in destination weddings in a geographic area, you can go ahead and spend $10, $50, $50, $25, and get some ads out there as well. So we are in a pay-to-play world. It doesn't matter whether it's Facebook, if it's Pinterest, if it's Twitter, or if it's Instagram. If you want your posts seen from a business community page, you definitely need to pay to play. It's also important for you, I think most of you probably know, that you've got a hashtag so that you can actually search your destination weddings hashtag, and hashtag everything that you're putting out there. You obviously want to tag your posts as you put them up. You want to tag other organizations, and you want to tag people when you can. And social media groups, I think most of you probably already know, LinkedIn groups is another great way to target based on specific topics. Social media in general is a webinar we could have in and of itself and talk about this till we're blue in the face. The most important thing when it comes, though, to generating leads is you have to pay to play, because when you pay to play, more people will have seen it through content amplification, and then they will click and go back to your website, which is ultimately where we get the leads. Because all of these pieces that we're talking about here, they're really targeted to go back to your website to generate the leads. Another source for your content is obviously e-newsletters, and I don't know how many of you do e-newsletters, but it's really important to think about sending your e-newsletters to your existing clientele or even prospective clients. It's really critical in doing e-newsletters. It's amazing how many e-newsletters people have, and on their website there's no place to sign up for it. So on your website, make sure it's easy to subscribe to your e-newsletter. You want to be short and sweet. You want an easy to unsubscribe function. So if most of you are using email servicing programs, they have that readily available for you. That's not too big of an issue. You also want to test subject lines, and a lot of email service providers will allow you to test too, and they will send you a sample. Whichever part of the sample gets a better pull, then that person will go ahead or the email program will send it to the masses on the one that generated the better effectiveness. At the end of the day, getting more people to read that content will give you the opportunity to have them click on it and go to your website. You also want to use your analytics to see what content is being read, and specifically I'm referring to Google Analytics. You can go in and take a look at your site content and see what people are reading. But the most important thing when it comes to e-newsletters is the rate of frequency in which you do them. I'm sure we've all received e-newsletters where you can just scroll, and there's like 10, 15, 20 different articles. People do that a lot because they want to do a monthly newsletter and they don't want to over-inundate customers. And we are in a world where people want to read short, brief information. So frequency is actually way more important than doing a very long e-newsletter. With Groups Today, if any of you are subscribing to the Groups Today newsletter, you may have noticed we've gone to actually a daily newsletter. It is a one article daily newsletter. That's it. Read it, enjoy it, click on it, or delete it. And it's one quick email. As a result of doing this, we've actually driven our traffic to our website by 27%. So it really supports that frequency is really way more important. So we've talked about blogging, e-newsletters, social sharing. Let's take a moment and really talk about the website, which is where your content is stored. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because we really want to get into capturing leads, but a couple of things. When you're looking at your website, the very first thing you need to look at is whether or not your website is mobily optimized. A lot of people ask me, well, how do I do this? Well, you sit at your computer and you take the corner of your website and you make it up the size of an iPhone. And if your content stacks, your website is mobily optimized. If it does not stack and it looks just like a mini version of what you see on your screen, it's not mobily optimized. And it's probably been about a year ago now that Google will not even recognize the content on your website if you're not mobily optimized. So you are shooting yourself in the foot. So go make sure your site is mobily optimized. Most companies can do this with relative ease at this point in time. The other thing you want to make sure that is very simple is social sharing. You want to make sure that on every page of your website, you make it very easy for people to see the Facebook, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, the Google+, the Pinterest page, and so they can share it on their own pages. You want to make sure you're joining the newsletter is very easy to find. And interestingly enough, today in today's world, when it comes to websites, don't worry about the scroll. It used to be everybody wanted to put everything at the top, and so it was very busy up top. But we have monitors and screens today. There are so many different sizes. We live in a scroll-worthy world, so Don't worry too much about that. So we take a look at the website. Those are the basics of things that really are critical when it talks about being able to capture leads, because first of all, you have to have the content. When people like the content, they click on that and go to your website. And then from there, we basically now have the content, people have gone to your website. Now we need to start talking about generating leads from it. So when we kind of get to the nuts and bolts of this, we're now to the point of like, what's your post-click strategy? And we've really narrowed the post-click strategy down to 3 things. Number 1 is landing pages, number 2 is data capture forms, and number 3 is pop-up forms. These are the 3 easiest ways to generate leads for yourself without relying on others to get them for you. So I'm going to go through each one of these specifically. Custom landing pages. When you're doing a custom landing page, in this one I gave you a couple of examples here. This one is for a specific attraction and promoting a tour. It really needs to reflect the message in which you're trying to convey. These 2 examples, really provide a basic call to action. They're clean and they match the overall campaign. And they're really important to really have these. You need to, like I said, make it reflect your campaign, keep it simple, and call to land. You need to have a call to action. And this one you'll see under this Papillon, it just says book your tour. Click on that and it takes you into a page. And specific custom landing pages, it's very easy today to basically go to NACTA.com / Papillon tour, or Serendipity Media / the ride. You can create these custom landing pages. People are used to typing in URLs, so when they go to this page, you want it to represent whatever it is that you're specifically promoting. Maybe this is your company name / destination weddings, and it matches the content that you've been sharing. So custom landing pages are really, really a critical piece of taking a look at this strategy. But once you've done that, you really need to create some data capture forms, because this is where you actually collect the name, address, phone number, or email address, then you then keep as a part of your database. But keeping this form is very, very simple. So you might have this landing page that says, thank you here, book a tour. And you'll see these are 3 different examples of various information that we've captured, whether it's a name, a company name, an email address. Some people like to collect more. I always like to tell people, try to be sure that the content that you're collecting is short and sweet. Most importantly, you need to make sure that when somebody takes the time to fill out this form, and this is the hottest lead that you've got, make sure that goes to the right person in your office, that it doesn't just go to some info at email that goes into cyberspace. On these forms here, I know I put here, what to share. Statistics, reports, data, white papers, ebooks. When you create a data capture form, you can do it on a custom landing page. You can create your own page on something. You can do a white paper download. So in order for somebody to be able to download the 10 worst mistakes of a destination wedding, they have to enter their information. You capture that lead. Data capture forms can be used in a variety of different ways, and you really need to think about how you use them. But they're the most effective tools at generating a piece of the lead gen that is taking place on your website. The other thing that is very, very important to any website when it comes to lead generation is pop-up forms. We all love to hate them, but the reality is it's a call to action. It is very specific, and people very much use these all of the time. Most importantly, it's really capturing an email address, because most pop-up forms require nothing less than that. But a couple of things to keep in mind. Time-delayed sensitivity is really, really important here. You don't want a pop-up to come on the homepage of every single, when somebody goes to your website. Oftentimes we like this to be a 60-second delay. Or you can use a page-specific pop-up. So for example, in the scenario I mentioned a moment ago, when somebody went to maybe a custom landing page about the 5 tips of what not to do at a destination wedding, when somebody is there, this pop-up could come up that says, hey, download our wedding brochure. And they put in the email address, they're able to get it. But they do it a minute, 60 seconds in, so it's not so much in their face. You can use this pop-up newsletter in so many variety of different fashions. Maybe you use the pop-up to generate new email subscriptions for your e-newsletter that you have sending out. Maybe you've got a special promotion that's taking place on river cruising. So when somebody goes to your website and they click on the river cruising pages, you can have a pop-up that says, hey, if you book by May 31st, you get 25% off your trip. Contests are a great way to use pop-ups. When somebody's been on your website for 60 seconds or longer, have a pop-up come on and have them enter to win a weekend getaway or an American Express gift card. Surveys, downloadable content. I mean, you can see that the examples certainly can go on and on, but it's really important to choose the right messaging. You know, it's kind of like just like creating an ad, your image needs to make sure that it's eye-catching and that it's interesting and that your copy should be straight and to the point. You'll notice these 3 examples here. It's very short and simple, and you know, many visitors are accustomed to closing the pop-up windows right away, so you have just seconds to capture their attention and get them to say, oh yeah, I'm actually willing to fill that out. If you're questioning whether this works or not, I'm going to give you a statistic. A website that we work with was receiving only 10 to 15 subscribers a day. They were getting 44,000 unique visits regularly. After implementing the pop-up with a 60-second delay, they started receiving 100 to 150 emails per day as a result of this. I mean, it's a dramatic increase, people, when you use the pop-up window. And so it can be very powerful to your overall strategy. So again, the biggest thing to keep in mind here, though, is your ability to capture the information requires, you have a short 2 to 3 second window to capture their attention. All right, so we talked about pop-up forms, landing pages, and we've talked about the ways to really increase and amplify your content. Basically, now we need to put the bow on the package and say, okay, now we've basically come up with content. We talked about how to amplify it, whether it's email, social media, website, etc. We talked about how to generate a lead, which is through our pop-ups, through our landing pages, and through our data capture forms. Now you need to put the bow on the package with SEO. I have a lot of people ask about SEO, like, why is it so important? And I just like to share with people, I mean, SEO in and of itself is a complete separate webinar. You could spend 45 minutes on search engine optimization specifically, but to show search engines, Google and Bing, that you're relevant and earn your site a higher spot on the search engine rankings, that's the whole purpose, is that at the end of the day, you want to drive more traffic to your site. You want to show Google and Bing that you're a viable, relevant website. If you do that, you show up higher in the rankings when somebody searches either by the content you have on your website or searches for keywords from your website. Specifically, I'm going to throw out some tactics that you can use to help increase your SEO. I will say this, everything that I've said thus far to creating authentic content, getting it posted on your website, driving traffic to your website through that content and all the other channels drives SEO. So everything we've talked about is really, really critical to that piece. That being said, there's a few additional things that you can do in addition to what I've already shared that will help increase your SEO. And that is to properly use keywords. And that is in your headers, your meta tags, your image tags, your URL, and your naming format. And just how you name an article can be very critical in driving your SEO. It's making sure that you know through your Google Analytics what type of content is people looking at. How can you use some of that in your headers and your meta tags and your image tags so that when people are searching, they find that. Another important thing is to link to quality internal and external sources. This is just kind of the philosophy we always like to say, you're popular by association. If a quality site links to your site, Google basically says, oh, okay, they're a better site, and that helps increase your SEO. So anytime you have the capacity, and most of you guys are working with very large companies, the cruise lines. I mean, anytime you mention, Norwegian Cruise Line on your website, you should be hyperlinking that to Norwegian Cruise Line's website and any other website in general. Also, you want to have internal links in your content. So, for example, on the article that I've been a little redundant with about the top things that you don't want to do on a destination wedding, within that article in and of itself, you should be in the content linking to other articles you wrote about destination weddings. So maybe that article, as they start to read it, isn't quite for them, but they see a hyperlink to another article that is. They can click on it and go into another article on your website And internal links basically just make a better experience for your visitor. And Google, Bing, this is something that's very important to them, which also increases your SEO. A couple other things that we know are very important is easy to navigate websites. And you'd be surprised how many websites are out there that are easy to navigate. But keeping your website clean and easy to get around is critical. I already mentioned mobily friendly, but last but not least is quick load times. And tour and travel of images. The images just, basically an image can sell just about anything. That being said, a lot of times people load images using the original image size, and it makes your website slow, sluggish, and it reduces your SEO dramatically. So you need to make sure that your images, when you're loading them, are not only tagged appropriately with the right keywords, but they're also web sized, so it doesn't slow down your website. By doing those things, in addition to what we've talked about with all the other content amplification, all those things combined will actually drive traffic to your website dramatically and get you increased exposure. So what I want to do today is there we go, just kind of recap what I've said, and then we'll go to a Q&A here, Lorraine. Here's what we know. We know that inbound marketing is the #1 method for nonprofits and anybody in that matter to cost effectively generate increased brand awareness. We know that success is achieved in earning your member or your client's trust versus selling hype. And we also know that once you drive traffic to your website, that's not where the work stops. You got to have your post-click strategy. You got to have your landing pages. You got to have your pop-ups. You have to have your data capture forms if you intend to generate leads through your content and through your website. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much to Lorraine and to NACTA for having me today, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Great job, Kasie. Thank you so much. We had 2 questions, so this is perfect, and they were right on target. One agent asked, let's see, it's regarding websites. Would you recommend a separate website versus a franchise or hosted generated website?
Yeah, that's a tough question. So on a franchise website, I think that there's a lot of good things that franchise websites can do. And if I'm understanding it correctly, like they're referring to a templated website. There's some good things that you can do. If you really intend to do content where you're posting content a couple of times a week, and you really intend to do the full development of this content amplification, I genuinely believe that creating your own website through a WordPress or a Joomla type template, working with an IT provider, creating your own site, it basically sets up a back-end interface for you to really go at, full throttle ahead. Makes much more sense. Templated websites are good and they're great if you don't intend to interact with them a lot. You can get a mobily optimized website on a templated website and help with some of your SEO. But if you really intend to go forward with all of these steps, I think getting a local IT firm that can create the website for you and allow you to post and engage with it regularly ends up increasing your SEO better.
One comment was, wonderful presentation. Thank you for the useful information. Yay. That wasn't a question, but yay. I wanted to throw that out there. Someone asked about how do you do the pop-up questionnaire or the sign-ins?
Sure. If in our case, we work with a company. Most of the websites that we work with are based on off of a Joomla-based template, and you can buy and have plugins that you use to create these pop-ups. And so, in order to create them, it's basically it's a technology add-on on the back of your website. I would assume that most IT providers would be able to do this for you with relative ease, because most of it's done with a plugin at this point in time versus custom coding and custom writing to be able to do it. And when it comes to data capture forms, if you're using a WordPress site or like a Joomla site or something like that, it's really, again, it's a templated thing that you can do in the back end, and it's not extremely difficult. If you have any questions, though, most of your IT providers should be able to walk you through it with relative ease.
Great, thank you. What is the best approach to use other people's content until you can generate your own?
So, you know, I think that, so this is sort of a ratio we always use. I mean, I think you need to be 50-50. I think it's great to share other people's content, great to share it socially. I think it's great to put it into your e-newsletters. If you use other people's content, it's always important to either ask permission or to provide 100% credit to who actually wrote that. And that's the most important thing in sharing people's content. We're in a world of a ton of content, and most people are very happy to share that content. And most often when people share content, they're sharing it within those given sources. So the content provider really gets the credit for it. So sharing content is great. Just be sure that you're giving credit where credit is due, and you're forwarding the link and hyperlinking back to where that source came from.
Perfect, perfect. Last question is kind of a two-parter. Let me make sure I get the two parts right. What is the difference between an e-newsletter and a blog? And then the next question was also, if you are small and new with a limited budget of bandwidth, what do you recommend focusing on first?
Okay, that's
kind of two hard questions. Sorry about that.
Two good questions. No, that's quite all right. All right, so the difference between an e-newsletter and a blog might tie in better to what the previous question was. So, for example, an e-newsletter can consist of multiple pieces of content. So let's say you are an agent and you are sending out a weekly or a monthly newsletter. And so your content might consist of one about the wedding destination. It might include about 10 packing tips, and it might be a piece of content that you forward in the newsletter from another source. So an e-newsletter has multiple pieces of content. Even if it's a daily newsletter, it's different content every day. Blogs are one piece of one way to provide content. And so, you know, a blog is very much one person's personal insight into what they're writing. When we talk about blogs, it's very much from your perspective, and when people read them, they know that it's, you know, your thoughts, your ideas, and et cetera. So if you are a small business and you're starting to really get started on this, I would suggest that you basically take approach. Number one, you have to have social media. This content amplification does not have to take you a ton of time. Number one, you should put it on your day. At the start of every day, you're going to do some content amplification. You're going to spend some time maybe retweeting, resharing people's content on your social channels. You're going to work on maybe a great blog or a great article that you post on your website, or you're going to write about a destination. So maybe you do that once a week. You know, you make sure you have a really great website. If I had to put in order of what you need to do, you need to have a great website, you need to have great social channels, and you have to have a great website because you got to have a place to store your content. You got to have some social channels that meet the needs of your customers, and you need to share on that on a regular basis. It doesn't take a lot of time. And then I think the last thing is you've got to curate some content. And even if you did it once a week, I'm going to create a new piece of content that I can share in all of these channels. You're going to be much better off. Once you get comfortable in those, I would layer on an e-newsletter. An e-newsletter definitely takes more time. It engages your customers regularly with your content, but it definitely takes a little bit more time, but it's definitely well worth it. So I hope that answers the small business, you know, person's budget. I mean, you should be able to do all of this. You know, I say half an hour to an hour every day.
Gotcha. Perfect. And, you know, these are all great tips, and I really want to thank you for the time that you've taken to do this. I know everybody learned something, and you had several things to be able to take. I know you did a great job. I'm going to be posting this on the NACTA channel. tomorrow. So I want to remind everybody that if you have not already signed up and subscribed to the NACTA channel, it is easy to do so. I will also be sending everybody a link for this training so that you can see it. And then that way also when you get to the NACTA channel, you will be able to subscribe so you can get it on a regular basis. Thank you so much. You did a great job, and you're definitely, this is a benefit to being a member of NACTA, is to be able to have this great sort of information, and Kasie is a resource. So thank you again. Any last minute information, you know, what website you'd like people to head to get more information or contact you if they need to?
Sure. I would encourage everybody, if they're not currently following Groups Today magazine, you can find us at groupstoday.com. Subscribe to our newsletter, because we do provide a lot of business content on a lot of these things, and it's a great way to stay connected and to continue to gather some of this information, and you can actually see all of this in practice, and certainly maybe gain some information that will help you be a better travel agent too.
Excellent. Thank you again. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here, and thank you again, Kasie. You did a great job. I look forward to our next session, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.